You're watching usgamer.net, and this is Forgottendo, 10 Nintendo games you've never heard of. As the world's most enduring first-party console publisher, Nintendo has quite a legacy of beloved games under its belt. But Nintendo has also produced a lot of games that no one ever talks about anymore, that many fans have never even heard of. While everyone blathers on about Super Mario Bros. And Donkey Kong, you never really hear about Sky Skipper and Monkey Magic. Whether it's because these games were stranded in Japan without an American release, bogged down in legalities, or simply weren't good enough to be worth talking about anymore, these 10 not-so-classic Nintendo games have been lost to the ages. How many have you heard of? Monkey Magic. This old Nintendo arcade title is so obscure that we can't even find any footage of it online for reference. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the many Journey to the West media projects by the same name, though. Instead, Monkey Magic was a breakout clone in which you broke blocks in the shape of a monkey's face, for some reason. Its one unique feature is that blocks would regenerate after a while, creating a dynamic and constantly changing playing field. Head On In. Head On In is unique on this list in that it wasn't a Nintendo-developed game. Rather, it was created by Sega as Head On 2, but Nintendo licensed it for distribution and rebranded it ever so slightly with a weird pun. Nintendo and Sega working together long before the console wars ever began. Who would have thought it back in the 90s? Hellafire. One of the minigames born in the heat of Japan's Space Invaders fever, Hellafire put a slightly different twist on things by taking players from outer space and into the ocean, where they controlled a lone submarine under attack by threats both aerial and aquatic. A pretty interesting idea, but reportedly the coding for the game was performed by a subcontractor called Ikegami Tsushinki, who had a falling out with Nintendo, so we'll probably never see it again. Space Demon. On the more traditional shooter front, there's Space Demon, follow-up to the better-known Space Firebird. It's a straight-up Galaxian clone, except you shoot birds and demons instead of insectile spaceships. This one also appears to have been made by Ikegami Tsushinki. Some speculate that Nintendo's court settlement with Ikegami over copyright violations forbids them from republishing games developed by the contractor. Sky Skipper. Maybe, just maybe, you've heard of this one. Sky Skipper is the only game on this list to receive a console port in the US, an Atari 2600 version by Milton Bradley. Players fly around rescuing cute little animals emblazoned with playing card suits from giant gorillas. This one, too, was evidently contracted to Ikegami Tsushinki, but I suspect the real reason this one languages in obscurity is because it's not up to Nintendo's usual standards. While the art looks great, it's definitely illustrated by Shigeru Miyamoto in his distinctive style, the action is complicated and not all that fun. Arm Wrestling. One of Nintendo's final arcade titles, Arm Wrestling served as a sort of spin-off from Punch-Out!, not only featuring the same massive character sprites, but even featuring Bald Bull as an opponent. Unlike Punch-Out!, though, Arm Wrestling lacked the depth and substance to make for an interesting home port, so it remains an arcade-exclusive release. Devil World. One of Nintendo's earliest creations for the home market, Devil World showed up on the Famicom, aka the NES, back in 1984, and was the only one of the early Famicom games not to make its way to the US. Well, besides Popeye Teaches English, for obvious reasons. Why not? Well, maybe it's because Pac-Man-style maze games had fallen out of fashion by the time the NES launched in America. Or maybe, just maybe, because Nintendo was well aware of the Satanism panic that gripped America in the 80s and didn't want to press its luck. Mech Fight. Nintendo jumped on the 90s fighting game trend, same as everyone else, but of course they put a Nintendo spin on things. Instead of taking the role of burly boxers slugging it out, Mech Fight sees players constructing model robots and pitting them against one another. You could almost see it as a dry run for Smash Bros. Alas, this one never made it to the US either, most likely because the advanced, expensive chip running the game seemed like an unreasonable risk in the dying days of the NES. Marvelous, another Treasure Island. What is Marvelous? Marvelous is an adventure game so entertaining and so unique that Nintendo tapped its creator, Eiji Aonuma, to take charge of the Zelda series. Less an RPG than a graphical adventure, Marvelous offers a charming real-world feel and a number of interesting little side stories to explore. Unfortunately, Nintendo was still gun-shy about localizing text-heavy games in the 90s, and the Super NES was already well on the way out the door by the time this launched, so we never saw it over here. And finally, Sute Hakun. An absolutely fascinating puzzle platformer that involves a character who can drain the color from interactive bits of scenery to affect their behavior. Sute Hakun came to the Super Famicom long after the Super NES had been abandoned in America in favor of the N64, and on top of that, it initially appeared on the Satellaview download service, which never came to America at all. Needless to say, it remains a Japan-exclusive game, and even there it's pretty hard to come by. For more about video games you'll never ever play, check out usgamer.net.